Welcome back to the Bluechip Breakdown, Vols fans. We're your hosts, Bull and P. And we got a few things to get to today. This is going to be a longer video. But number one, man, Nick Saban comes out with an article on ESPN written by Chris Lowe. We're going to talk about that. He's really talking about NIL. And to me, it sounds like he's trying to position himself to be the new commissioner of all of college football. We'll talk about that. And then we'll also touch on some Johhny Manziel clips. And it pretty much makes Nick Saban out to look like a liar, and it makes him look real fake. We're also going to get into our way too early, postseason playoff picture with our top 12 teams, or at least with the teams, with the 12 teams that we think will make it into the playoffs. So let's start off talking about the article with Nick Saban and Chris Lowe. All right, so the title of this article is Nick Saban wants to be voice for a change in college football. And like we said, it's written by Chris Lowe. We're going to start reading right here where it says Tuscaloosa, Alabama. Nick Saban is retired from coaching, but he emphasized Wednesday that he isn't retired from doing his part to help bring some reform, uniformity, and common sense to college football and the lingering chaos surrounding the sport. And then Nick Saban goes on to say, if my voice can bring about some meaningful change, I want to help any way I can because I love the players and I love college football. What we have now is not college football. Not college football as we know it. You hear somebody use the word student athlete that doesn't exist. All right, now we're going to skip forward to this point right here where it says, while still coaching at Alabama, Saban said he understood that any critique he made of the current NIL climate combined with the transfer portal, in particular the lack of rules on agents shopping around players in the portal and schools bidding on high school players through donor-based collectives, could come across as self-serving. But now that he is no longer coaching, Saban plans to take an even stronger stance. So there's a lot to unpack just with that point right there, but we'll kind of get through everything that we want to read in this article. And again, we're not going to read everything. This right here might be the last point that we're going to make. So this is a quote from Nick Saban. It says, I'm not really looking for a job, but I do know I'd like to impact college football the best way I can, whether it's being a spokesperson or anything else. Listen, I'm for the players. It's not that I'm not for the players. I want to see the players have a great quality of life and be able to create value for themselves. But we've gone to nobody talking about education, nobody talking about creating value for their future, to only talk about how much money I can make while I'm in college. All right, so Saban kind of goes on throughout this article talking about some of the consequences of, what the NIL picture and what college football could look like with the way that players are now wanting to get paid off of their name, image, and likeness. And, he's pretty much saying that he is completely against all of that. And, it does sound like that's a big part of the reason that he left from college football. All right, so P, I know that you read that full article and so did I. But after reading it, what are your thoughts on what Nick Saban's talking about?
Yeah, I think Saban tries to come across as a do-all, well-meaning guy here. I don't want responsibility. Don't give me the position of commissioner of college football. Just connect me, but I don't want it. I'll take responsibility. I don't want it. But I think clearly that's what he wants. I think he's pretty much campaigning for it right now, and he talks about. It's not about the kids' education anymore. It's about how much money can they make. That wasn't a problem back when you're in your heyday. You're paying these guys when only your team was doing it. When it wasn't even playing field, it was all fine then. Now it's even playing field. He kind of wants to step in and try to make some regulations, some rules, and some guidelines about how he wants it to work. And we'll kind of see how it goes. We'll see if he picks up any steam behind it. But I don't know. I don't really kind of buy his message in terms of not wanting to be the voice. I think he does want to be the voice. I think he does want to be in charge and make those rules. And he's probably going to be, I would say, probably pretty biased when he gets in there. Probably will help Bama any way he can, and maybe even help the SEC in general. But definitely, I think he will help Bama. We'll see if he gets it. But he is a popular figure. I think he does obviously hold a lot of weight with his resume, his track record, everything he's done for the game of college football, especially the last 2 decades or so. So, we'll see how it goes, but it's definitely a change in environment. So, I think a guy like Nick Saban probably has a good chance to be the face of college football moving forward.
Yeah, so number one, I think, so everything that you just said is pretty much that echo. I'm echoing all those sentiments. But us as Tennessee fans, the last thing that we want is to have Nick Saban be over college football in any sort of a way because, to your point, P, he's going to be biased to Alabama. He spent the most time coaching there, and he still has an office there inside of the stadium. So I think that he's a little bit, he just retired, just like a couple of months ago. So he needs to spend some more time away from Alabama before I would want to say, hey, maybe we can bring him in Something else that I just can't stand is a hypocrite. He's extremely hypocritical. Number one, talking about not wanting to pay these players and all this, and oh yeah, like there needs to be some sort of a cap. That's a part that is inside the article, and y'all will see it if you read it. But for you to want to put these caps on things, did you put a cap on your own salary when you was making $10+ million a year? No, you didn't. So we're talking about a sport. We're talking about a business that produces billions of dollars a year. It's insane to think that these players in any sport can't get a piece of that pie, and to try to make it about, oh, it's all about the education. And I'm not even going to go into what a college education means these days, but it ain't the same as what it was in the 90s, even in the early 2000s. I think that the value is just decreasing tremendously. So why not let these young players get paid? I think that what would make more sense is to teach some financial literacy. That's the biggest thing that these young men and women need right now, because they can create, a future of generational wealth for their families moving forward off of just the NIL and what's going to end up turning into like a salary for these players. And especially whenever you're talking about football, because football is, I think, the only major professional sport that does not have fully guaranteed contracts. It's by far the hardest sport on your body, and the quality of life after playing the game is poor for like 85% of the people that play it long term. So that just really rubbed me all types of wrong. I really do like, well, I don't want to say that I like Coach Saban, but I respect Coach Saban as a coach. He is the GOAT, but hearing this type of stuff, hell no, it ain't no way that I would want you to come in and do that NCAA stuff that we're trying to move away from. I wouldn't want that personally. Now, I know some people will disagree, but to each their own. I don't like it. And again, I think that Coach Saban is a big time hypocrite doing this because, P, like you said, they was paying players at Alabama for the longest time. And it ain't no fun when the rabbit got the gun. Once everybody else, started to get the playing field even with the transfer portal, which is something else that Saban touches on. And I kind of tend to agree that there needs to be a cap or a limit on that. But also with NIL, not that the players can all get paid. We're seeing some of these smaller programs come up. But that's how I feel about it. And we're going to look at something that Johhny Manziel said yesterday on the Shannon Sharp show. It's called Club Shay Shay. I think that this is very interesting, and it proves that Coach Saban is a hypocrite.
And I found this out 5 years later from my dad. But my dad went and had a meeting with Kevin Sumlin and pretty much went to him man to man and was like, we'll take $3 million and we'll stay for the next 2 years. And my dad says this is true as today as he did when he told me. He left. He did the same thing that he did when Cliff Kingsbury asked him to be the highest paid offensive coordinator the year before. Mm-hmm. And Cliff would have stayed with me another year and we would have ran it back and gone for another one.
Right. You said your dad went to Kevin Sumlin and says for $3 million.
We're staying for 2 more.
Now, you do realize this is prior to NIL.
I agree.
This is a backroom deal.
It went on for 30, 40 years before. It was the same way that was happening when you was getting recruited back in the day.
And you guys, y'all, Texas A&M got money Texas A&M, nobody got no money like Texas A&M. Y'all got the big dogs.
Aggie ring, baby.
Y'all got the big dogs. And so $3 million, if he had gone to any of the boosters and said, you know what?
Done.
Johhny dad said he'll stay for an additional 2 years if we just break him off $3 million.
Just keep it, cash, throw it somewhere. We'll get it later. We don't need it right now.
Right.
But for my security, if something happens for 2 years down the road,
right.
And my dad did this without me knowing. And I ain't mad at him about it for nothing. It's the way the business worked back then.
Right.
There was a bag man. There was a bag man at LSU. There was a bag man at Bama. There was a bag man at every school around the country if you were competing for a national title.
All right, so y'all heard Johhny Football say it was a bag man at Alabama. It was a bag man at LSU. It was a bag man at every single program around the entire country that's competing for a national title. But we all knew that, okay? That's very well known. And that's why, to me, what Nick Saban comes out, says inside of this article with Chris Lowe, and he's obviously lobbying to be the new, face and voice of college football. But it's just, it is intellectually dishonest, just like Donnie Plowman said, okay? We know what college football is. We know what it has been. Players have always gotten paid. So to try to make it seem like, all of a sudden that now it's legal and that your program can't benefit from it, that is some big problem. that, again, that just rubs me all different types of wrong. But P, do you have any closing thoughts on Coach Saban and this whole situation with Johhny Manziel spilling all the beans?
Yeah, I got to tip my hat to Johhny football coming out and kind of spilling the beans. I wish he'd go ahead and start, pulling receipts and really, getting some of these guys in trouble, especially some of these Bamas, these dribblers, these type of guys, play those receipts. But I mean, it just speaks to kind of who Saban is for him to go out here, like you said, be a hypocrite, intellectually dishonest, saying that, oh man, this isn't college football. This isn't the football I know, but this is the football that you built. You know what I mean? Like you're pretty much the cover boy for this brand of ball. And now that everybody can do it, you want to kind of cower and point the finger and point the button. Man, we're not buying it. We know who you are. We see right through your facade. And like I said, man, I tell him I have to drive football. Man, he's probably one of the best players I've seen in my lifetime in college. So respect the heck out of him. He was a guy that has a tendency to kind of, embellish a little bit. We see a documentary on Netflix, kind of about him and his background. So, we don't know exactly how much truth he's telling here, but you got to take his word at face value, in my opinion. I think that's the great thing about Shannon Sharp Show. He gets guys to come on here and be very candid and open with their responses. He's created that platform for them. And so, I think you can believe what he's saying. We'll see how this thing goes, but I think this is definitely going to turn into something here as we get moving.
Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and move into our CFP picture for 2025. All right. And so we picked 12 teams based off of the new 5+7 model. And we're pretty much looking at what the, current rosters are, what we think that they'll end up being, what the coaches look like. But the biggest thing is going to be what their schedules look like. It's not necessarily the 12 best teams, but it's the teams that we think will end up making it into the playoffs. And I'll start it off right here, Pete. For me, number 12, I've got Arizona making it into the playoffs. And they went 10-3 this past season, okay? They actually beat Oklahoma in the Alamo Bowl. Now, we all know that Oklahoma didn't have their star quarterback in Dylan Gabriel, but I really like Coach Fish. I like what his offense does. I think that they've got a good quarterback in Noah Fafita. He's going to be able to make some plays, and I've got them going 11-2. P, who do you have at number 12?
Well, first of all, I really like that pick for Arizona. I think that is definitely a sleeper team. Love the quarterback. Forget the receiver's name, but he's big time as well. We saw them light up in the ball game last year, so that's a really great sleeper pick. For me, number 12 is Kansas. I know a lot of people say Kansas. Well, like you said, they're in the Big 12. Big 12 isn't a super strong conference this year. I got them coming in at my 12 seed.
Yeah, I think that that's a great pick, especially looking at that schedule. I think that they probably could end up being the team that makes it to the Big 12 championship, but I could see them, like you said, P, losing to Utah in that situation because Utah's got a really good defense. But let me get on to my number 11 team, which is Notre Dame. And Notre Dame went 10-3 this past season. Head coach Marcus Freeman, I think this is his third, maybe fourth season, something like that. But I think that he's kind of getting that thing right up there in Notre Dame. If they're anywhere near the top 12, they're going to get in because I believe that they've got the biggest fan base in the entire country. So the powers that be really want to get Notre Dame into the playoffs. So that's really going to work in their favor. Now I've got them going 10-2 this season. And they've also got Riley Leonard, who's coming from Duke, and he had over 40 touchdowns at Duke. He's a really good quarterback. Okay. I think he's an NFL caliber quarterback. He can move, and he's not going to be as good as like a Jaden Daniels, but I think that he's going to fit very well in Den Brooks' offensive system. I can see them putting up a lot of points and kind of getting away from what Notre Dame, has been traditionally, where they're more of a straight up and down, kind of a boring team to watch. I think that they're going to be very exciting, and that's definitely going to get them some votes to get into the playoffs. And then on top of that, they are returning several key starters in the middle of that defense. We all know that that's where it starts at. So I've got Notre Dame at number 11. P, who you got?
Man, I love that pick. I like it so much. I got the same team at number 11. I got Notre Dame coming in here. The schedule is a little tricky, right? You got USC, even Miami of Ohio is a solid team. I think they were number one in their conference last season. So they have some teams that can definitely give them some problems. Louisville, Florida State. But I think they found a way to get out of that with only 2 losses. And like you said, if they're a 2-loss team, I think they're in. I like Marcus Freeman, what he did last season with those guys, the past couple seasons with those guys. Be able to kind of win over that program and put his own identity on it. I think you look at Notre Dame, they have a good offensive line. They were pretty good on both sides of the line of scrimmage. I think this will be the same will be true for him coming into this season. Led them picking up the quarterback from Duke. I think he's a gamer. We saw that he can out there make some plays last season. So I think Notre Dame has a real shot to really make it, Notre Dame has a real shot to make a run here and be a playoff team. So I got them at that number 11 spot.
All right, so number 10 for me is probably going to be a shocker to some of y'all, but I've got Texas A&M, okay? So I really like Mike Elko. We just talked about Duke, how good their offense was this past season and, in prior seasons as well. But I like him as an offensive-minded coach, okay? His defenses look pretty solid, and they are returning the most production in all of the SEC with 72% of their guys coming back. I think a lot of times when we think about Texas A&M, we're thinking about, oh my gosh, like they lost so many great players to the portal, but they were loaded. They had a ton of talent. Jimbo Fisher just couldn't get it right. And now that they've got some fresh blood in there, and Mike Elko actually being a guy that coached at Texas A&M before, I think that he's going to have a very easy transition. So, P, who you got at number 10?
Man, first, I love that A&M pick. That's another sleeper team. I think they'll be better than people think heading into this season. But at number 10 for me, I got Auburn. Another kind of a shocker. But me and you are both big believers in Hugh Freeze. I think he's a phenomenal coach. Saw what he did with Ole Miss years ago. Took him about 2 years to get that program turned around. This is year 2 for him at Auburn. I think he's really starting to get the pieces he needs. Still have question marks at quarterback. They got a couple of guys coming in here in this recruiting class and picked up some big guys, some big-time wide receivers in this 2024 class as well. Potentially come in and be impact type guys.
All right, so for me at number 9, I've got Penn State. I think that James Franklin is going to be able to make it into the playoffs because their team really has been one of the top 12 in the country for the past few seasons. He does a great job at motivating. His defenses are always really good. The biggest problem for him has been his offense. Now, he did get a new offensive coordinator from Kansas in Andy Kotelnicki. And, just in watching what their offense looks like, it's pretty much the same thing that Coach Franklin has always run. So I do have some concerns there. But again, I think that they could be what they have been, and they'll still be able to sneak into the playoffs. And they've also got Drew Allard returning at quarterback. I think that's going to be a big factor for them. And they've got a new defensive coordinator in Tom Allen, who's coming from Indiana. But again, man, really Coach Franklin's defenses are all the same. They're always good. He always plays really good defense. He's going to motivate his players to play kind of like outside of themselves, but also within themselves, if that makes any sense. They're going to play at the highest level that they possibly can. And I think that they've got a really good shot to maybe even make a push once they get into the playoffs at 11-1. P, who you got at number 9?
Man, I love that pick too. I was close to picking them. Didn't pick them just because I don't know if I can believe that offense or not. We'll see. Adding a new coordinator from Kansas, we'll see. But I don't know. But number 9 for me, I got Miami. I got the U coming in here. I think they have a big year. They're loaded with talent. They had a pretty solid year last year. They didn't do as well as they probably should have with the talent they have. But I think the talent is on that roster. They added Cam Ward in the transfer portal. May have been the number 1 transfer portal QB this past season. So I think he's going to add an element to that offense. We love their whole line. Riddle with 5 stars. Okay, good on defense, good in the back end. A lot of great athletes out there. Really like this team. I think they're going to be a tough team to beat. And the ACC, we know, is not the strongest conference in the world, but I think still will be good enough to get them into college football playoff here at my 9th spot.
All right, so for me at number 8, I've got Ole Miss. Okay, and they went 11-2 last year. We heard Coach Kiffin come out and say that he needs more talent. They actually was kind of taking it to Georgia early on in that game. And that's the story of Georgia, really. A lot of teams are able to stick with them early on, but then once that depth kind of runs out, Georgia ends up winning. So I think that this is the year that Ole Miss can take that next step forward because they did a great job inside of that transfer portal. I really like Jackson Dart. I think that his personality matches up very well with Coach Kiffin. They're going to air it out. Okay, he's going to make plays. He's going to be a baller. He's tough. And I think he'll make it through the entire season, although he probably does need to start trying to slide just a little bit more. But I really, I don't want to say that I like Ole Miss, but, I like them as a team that will be able to make a real playoff push this season. So I've got Ole Miss at the number 8 seed coming in at 11-1. P, who do you got?
Absolutely love that pick. I got Ole Miss number 8 as well. Like you said, their schedule is super favorable, man. They don't really play anybody all season. Well, all season, but they got about a good 5-6 game kind of roadway to get going before they have to play anybody of real consequence. I got them dropping one to LSU this year. But I do agree with you. I think they will beat Georgia. And, I think Lane Kiffin's a good coach. I think he knows how to compete. They've had a lot of talent in the middle. He understood what this team needed to do to get to where they could compete with the Georgias, the Bamas, those type of teams. I think he's done that in this offseason. And I think they're going to find a way to do it now. An interesting scenario we'll kind of get more into as we get going here. But I have 2 other SEC teams in my playoff scenario here, and they all could potentially be one-loss teams, or they all could potentially be undefeated because they don't play each other. So I think that's an interesting thing to kind of think about as we get moving.
Absolutely.
I got them at number 8.
All right, so for me at number 7, I've got Oregon. Okay, obviously Dan Lanning has done a great job with the Oregon Ducks, and they did a tremendous job in that transfer portal, going out and getting Dylan Gabriel to run that offense. And then they also got Dante Moore, right? Who he's another really good quarterback. I don't know how these teams are able to get multiple starting caliber quarterbacks, but they did. They also got Evan Stewart out of the transfer portal, and they already had a really good roster, and they're just adding to it. I think that their schedule is a little bit tougher than most. It's probably going to be a little bit tougher than it was this past season, but I think that they'll be able to get through it. But Pete, who do you got at number 7?
Same. I got Oregon at number 7 as well. I like that team, man. Hey, I like what Dan Lanning's doing there. Obviously, adding Dylan Gabriel, just Mr. Efficient, puts up numbers everywhere it goes, and then having a backup like Dante Moore. If something does happen to Gabriel, you feel pretty confident in that backup coming in and keeping that thing rolling. They play pretty good defense out there. We'll see how it matches up when they go to the Big Ten, where it's a little bit more physical between the tackles type of gameplay. And I think the offense is going to do well. I think they'll be able to kind of spread the field and give this Big Ten defense to something that they don't see every week unless they're playing a team like Ohio State. I have them losing to Ohio State twice. I think they'll lose to them in the regular season, and then we'll lose to them again in the conference title. But I got them sneaking in there at that number 7 spot.
All right, so at number 6, I've got Texas, okay? I love what Steve Sarkisian has done with that program. They're really going to be they're like the next Bama, okay? Georgia thinks that they're the next Bama, but I really think that Texas is very close to being that. They did a phenomenal job, okay, in their 2024 class. I think they finished number 6. And then their transfer portal class this past season was ranked number 7. And they're also returning the second most production in all of the SEC. So they are a loaded football team. And Steve Sarkisian, who's a guy that we know pretty well from coaching with the Falcons, he knows how to dial them up. And I think that, them making the push that they did this past season with so many guys coming back, I think that they're ready to make that championship push this season. And I don't have them losing any games except in the conference championship. And I'm going to keep that one under wraps until we get further into the show. But Pete, who do you got at number 6?
Man, at number 6, I easily could have switched this team with my number 2 team. I think these two teams are interchangeable, but they're in the same conference. So I think they'll kind of butt heads there. But I got Tennessee at number 6. Just trying to take the orange-tinted glasses off for a little bit and just trying to be too much of a homer. Like I said, I can easily see this flipping and flopping. But I got Tennessee, man. We love what they have. I mean, Nico Imahava, the offense, Brew McCoy, they got so many weapons coming back on that side of the ball. And then you look at the defense as well. We expect to take a huge step forward, returning pretty much 4 or 5 of those interior guys that are veteran guys, 23, 24, 25-year-old guys in the middle. They got Mark Black in the secondary. We love what Hypo does. I think him having that quarterback piece that he missed last season will open this thing up. They had some transfer players, at receiver, tight end, just all over the field. So I feel really good about this team coming into it. I think they'll go down there. They're going to beat Georgia. They'll beat Bama this season. I think they'll win every game in the regular season, but I think they will lose to, I think they'll lose to Texas in the conference title. Hate to say it, but that's just kind of where I see it going down.
No, man, I mean, I could definitely see that because Texas is a very, very good football team. And I mean, really, if you look from top to bottom, they've got, I would say that they might be like 1 and 2, them and the Buckeyes, probably like 1 and 2 as far as the roster and really having everything that you need from a talent perspective. But we'll kind of touch on that a little bit more as we continue to go through. So for me, at number 5, I've got Liberty coming in. Okay, so now we talked about how the 5+7 model works. It's going to be one team outside of the, Power 4 conferences that's going to make it in. And I've got Liberty, who went 13-1 this past season. They got drugged by Oregon. But I've got them going 13-0 all the way through the regular season. And that's why I have them making it into the playoffs. I think especially with them having a good run this past season, I think that they'll be able to replicate that. And then, they've got their quarterback coming back in Caden Salter, who kind of flirted around with the transfer portal some, but him coming back, I think, is huge. So that is my number 5 pick. And I mean, their schedule is just not that tough. I mean, it's Conference USA. So I think that they'll be able to handle it pretty easily. But P, who do you got?
I got the same guys. I got Liberty as well, man. I just think it sets up nicely for them. Obviously, Caden Salter, a guy that Tennessee won coming out. Well, Tennessee had coming out of high school. Really, really talented guy. Can do it all for you. And then you look at the head coach, Jimmy Caldwell. I mean, he's a guy Jamie Caldwell. Sorry. Jamie Caldwell. He's a guy, man. I like him a lot. He's been successful everywhere he's been. Coastal Carolina, he was really good there. And now he's got SMU. He's got a Liberty role in the same way. And I think Hugh Freeze left that roster in a pretty good situation for him as well. And so there's talent on that roster. Hugh Freeze is getting kind of those kind of lower tier, maybe overlooked SEC caliber guys on his roster. And I think that he'll be able to kind of run the table there in that conference. I got them coming in at that number 5 spot.
All right, so for me at number 4, I've got Florida State. Okay, I think that Mike Norvell has done a really good job with that program. We saw what they did this past season. Jordan Travis gets hurt, and their entire season just kind of comes off of the tracks. Well, it didn't really, because they actually ended up winning out. But then once they got to the bowl game situation, and they didn't make it into the playoffs this past season, everyone just kind of quit. Like people said, well, I'm going on to the league, or I'm transferring, or I'm just going to opt out of this bowl game. So they got beat. I think that was the worst loss in their program's history to Georgia by 60 points. And a lot of people are trying to crown Georgia for that. But what I would say to that is, well, Florida State didn't have anybody. Like, what would your team do if you weren't playing up against anybody? Like, if you're playing up, if you're playing versus air, you're going to put up 60 points. Okay. So that's pretty much what happened. But I think that now, they're going to be out to prove a point. They still have a very talented roster. I think that they did a good job in the transfer portal. They did a good job in the 2024 class. And, I think they'll have a lot of fresh faces come in. But I think that adding a guy like DJ Uyunglele, I think that Florida State will be able to go 12-1, and I think that they're going to be a playoff team. I just don't see any way that the College Football Playoff Committee will be able to keep them out twice. I think that they're in. But, P, who do you got at number 4?
Then I got Utah. I think Utah making the move to the Big 12. I think they'll be the best team in that conference. I think they'll run the table. I think they'll go 12-0, 13-0 with the conference championship. They're just like we always talk about. We talk about Utah. They're going to play good defense. They're going to be well coached, and they're usually going to be an older team, have more experience. They got Cam Rising, quarterback, who's going on like his 7th or 8th season. That's no joke. He's moving on his 7th or 8th season. He's been there forever, and I think that he's ready for this moment. He's ready to come in here and make a run. And there's no better time than right now for those guys. So I got Utah coming in here at that 4th spot.
All right, so I've got Ohio State at number 3. They went 12-1 this past season. And we all know that they've added a ton of talent, okay? Their 2024 class was great. The transfer portal, I think that they knocked that out of the park. And they really, I think, kind of dodged the bullet with not having to bring in a guy like Bill O'Brien to be the OC, and instead you get a guy like Chip Kelly. Dude, they've got Aaron Nolan. They've got Julian Sane. Those are 2 dual-threat quarterbacks. And then they've also got the guy coming in from Kansas State. I just feel like they are going to have a very, very productive offense. And their defense is going to be very stout, very hard to stop. Now, my only caveat to this entire thing is Ryan Day as a head coach. I just don't believe in him that much. And I think that he will continue to have that team underachieving, because if they had a real dog at the head coach, they would be able to run the tables, I think, pretty easily in college football, according to what the landscape is at this point, because they're that loaded. But, Pete, who do you got at number 3?
Number 3 for me, I got Florida State. Kind of talked about them getting DJ Uyunglele, big time addition for them. I like what Mike Norvell's doing. I like what he's building. They still got a lot of really good pieces on that roster. I think, like you said, they're going to take it kind of personal what happens to them last season. Not just not getting to the playoff, but then the way they got beat by Georgia in that bowl game. And the way people talked about that game as if Georgia did anything, as if they're that much better than Florida State. Seriously, they took that personal and said, we didn't have any of our guys. We're playing guys that haven't played all season against these guys, getting their first experience against these guys. And I think they're taking that personal. I think they're working hard this offseason. They're going to come out here and they're going to make a point to run through the ACC. And I think they'll do that. Now, a tough game on their schedule that I think they may get tripped up on potentially is that SMU game. I think SMU's a team, and this is why I think it kind of hurts SMU moving to the ACC this season. They were in the AAC last year. I think if they're in that same conference last season, if they're in AAC again in this season, I think that they potentially get that 5th spot, because I think they could probably win the AAC and be the best kind of non-power team to win a conference. But now in the ACC, I don't think they'll do enough to overcome Florida State, Miami, and those type of teams. So I got Florida State pulling this one out, but I think it'll be a good game when they do play those guys. But yeah, I like Florida State a lot to kind of a redemption tour for those guys this season.
Absolutely. So for me at number 2, I've got Utah. So the Utah Utes, P, you already touched on them. They're going to play great defense. Okay, their head coach, he's a defensive-minded coach in Cal Whittingham. And some of y'all might not know this, but, Utah was a good team last year until everyone got hurt. They might have had the most significant injuries out of any team in the entire country. And that's why their record was what it was. But they'll be able to get that ship righted. And I fully expect for them to be 13-0 and earn that number 2 spot. But P, who do you got?
Number 2 for me, I got Texas. I think Texas, we kind of talked about this earlier. I talked about the 3 teams, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Texas, as my 3 SEC teams, that they don't play each other. So they could honestly all be undefeated, or they could all have one loss. There could be almost like a 3-way tie, but I got Texas kind of run the table. I think they'll beat the Rebs this season. And the Rebs didn't make my list, by the way. Spoiler alert. I got them losing, so seriously, a spoiler alert. I got them losing Ole Miss, Texas, maybe Auburn, and Bama, potentially. I mean, that's a potential 3 to 4, maybe even 5 loss teams. I think Clemson has a real shot to get in week 1. Nobody's talking about it. Clemson's another stable team. But I got Texas, man. I like them a lot. I love Sarkisian. Love when you was quarterback. They have depth behind them, Arch Manning. So you really like what they have. They have great receivers. People say they have the best receiver room in the country, which says a lot coming from us, being Tennessee fans, and the receiver room we feel like we have this season as well. So I like these guys a lot, man. I think that they, like I said, they have a chance to run the table. And I think that SEC championship game, I think they'll match up with Tennessee, and that could be the potential loss for the season. But I like them kind of run the table and getting all the way to Atlanta unscathed. And I'll tell you, the reason I'm now number 1 is because, like I just kind of touched on, Georgia's going to lose, I think, a few games, and I think Bama will as well. And just kind of having those 2 teams, even though they don't play Bama, I think that's going to kind of degrade the SEC kind of a little bit and like make it to where that strength of schedule maybe isn't what it maybe needs to be the number 1 seed. At least not quite over my number 1 team. So that's why they're number 2 for me.
So, P, I'm going to go ahead and let you do your number 1 team, too. So you can go ahead and
okay.
Back.
Yeah, so my number 1 team, I got Ohio State. I think they arguably have the most talented roster in the country. I think it's them, and Texas is right there with them, like you said earlier. They got Will Howard coming in from Kansas State, quarterback, who not the most prolific passer, but I think he can run that Chip Kelly offense well. He is more of a dual threat type guy, a guy that's not scared to lower his shoulder, hit tough yards, and can make the passes as well when he needs to. And I just think, Ryan Day's going to get that thing going, Chip Kelly being there as well. Like you said, having the depth at quarterback, we saw what happened to Florida State, losing their quarterback last season. Pretty much the committee said you guys are done. I think the team like Ohio State, they have backups like Julian Nolan. Guys like Julian Saban, Aaron Nolan. These guys give them other options at that position. And I just like the talent. They have a great roster. Schedule's pretty favorable. I think they'll run the table, go 13-0, and be number 1 seed in the playoff.
Yeah, so I mean, I love all those picks, man. I mean, I think that to your point, the Buckeyes, they're loaded, Texas is loaded, but this one team, there's one team. There's always one team. And people, you can call me a homer, you can call me whatever you want to, but I'm about to spell it out for you and let you understand more clearly why I'm picking the Tennessee Vols to have that number 1 seed. Why I'm picking them to run the tables, go from coast to coast, and win the whole damn thing. Because number 1, okay, styles make fights. Okay, like we talked about that throughout this entire video. That's what we started it off with. It's how does your team playing up against this team, how is that going to look? Where are you playing at? All that good stuff, okay? Tennessee style, once we've got the talent that we need, there's nothing you can do to stop it, okay? Whenever we're talking about we can spread you out, okay? And we've got now the wide receivers that can win in, one-on-one matchups. Okay, you've got to have a light box because if you don't, we're going to kill you on the outside. But at the same time, you've got to kind of try to find a way to dedicate somebody to that box because we got a stable of running backs. We got some dogs on the offensive line. The only real question mark that I have on offense would be that left guard position. But I really like Jackson Lampley. Okay, he's passionate about Tennessee. I think he's going to step up and he's going to have a field day. Okay, we've got 2 great tight ends, maybe possibly the best tight end duo that we've had at Tennessee since the 90s. I mean, you've got, or maybe at least since the early 2000s. It's that type of talent, okay? So whenever you got all that, right? An offense that we saw back in 22 was leading the country, I believe, in points at the end of the season, or at least at some point, we were number 1 offense in the entire country. We can put up points. We can score quickly. The tempo's hard to stop. Pick your poison. Who are you going to try to stop? And then you've got Nico Iamaleava, who I believe is going to have a Heisman Trophy type of a season this year. I think that he's going to be the best quarterback in the entire country this year as a true sophomore, 6'6", okay? He's fast. He's probably going to be up to about 225-ish pounds. Okay, he's fast, he's tough, he can make all the throws on the run, all the different angles. He's smart. The ball's going to get out of his hands quickly. I just see this being the best offense in the entire country, and I don't think that that's a homer take. If you're paying attention, if you're looking at what we've got, now obviously these guys have to come out and prove it, but if you look at what we actually have, I can really, really see that happening. And then you flip the ball, and then you flip it to the other side of the ball on defense. Our defensive front is going to be top 5 in the entire country. I don't care who it is. We can rotate them in waves. We've got James Pierce, who's going to be the best pass rusher returning in the entire country, coupled with a whole lot more guys on the inside and on the outside who can get to the quarterback. We're going to be able to stop the run is what we do best. Linebackers take a huge leap forward. Keenan Pili, okay? He's a dog. He's another one, 25, 26, 27 years old, Polynesian background. He's a warrior. We've also got Arion Carter, someone who people have raved about, Jeremiah Thielander. Okay, we've got a great linebacker core. I think that upgrades tremendously over this past season. And then the secondary, across the board, every single position, guys who can play man-to-man coverage. They have all the proper skills necessary. They've got the size, they've got the length, they've got the speed, they've got the versatility, and they're willing to come in and make tackles. We're going to be able to get pressure on the quarterbacks, stop the run, and make you throw the football down the field in some tight windows and make you outperform Nico. What quarterback would you pick to outperform Nico? Is it going to be Carson Beck? Of course not. I would never pick him to outperform Nico because although he has a great team, he individually is not a better talent than Nico is. And I don't think that anyone in the entire country is. So that's why I've got Tennessee running the daggone tables, okay? Got us going undefeated. And I dare anybody to challenge me on that as the season goes through, okay? Wow. Toughest games that Tennessee has are going to be at Oklahoma. But I think that obviously with Coach Heupel going back to his alma mater, he's going to have a great game plan in store. I think that Tennessee wins. I think he's going to show Nico off. We're going to put up big points in that one. And then, we've got Alabama coming to Knoxville. Alabama's going to be good, okay? I'm not saying that they're going to fall all the way off the face of the map, but I do think that Tennessee is going to be the better team. Okay, you've got Coach Kalen DeBoer coming into an Alabama situation where right now I kind of feel like he's still trying to get it figured out. It might take him a year or two to really feel more comfortable, about doing what he really wants to do. Because I still think that Saban's kind of breathing down his neck, and he may not be able to fully open up what he wants to do as a head coach. Now, they are still talented, but I do think that Tennessee wins that one. After that, we got to go down to Akron. Okay, that's going to be another tough football game. But again, do you trust Carson Beck or do you trust Nico more? I trust Nico more, and he's only started in one game as a college football player. So that's what I've got, man. I've got Tennessee going all the way. And P, do you have any closing thoughts?
Bam. I just say this, man. You daggone changed my pick. Hey, I'm putting Tennessee in my number one spot too. Okay, I got Tennessee 1, and I got Texas going down to 6. Okay, seriously, and all things you said, Simmons, I believe. Okay, we got the defense, offense, the special teams, the coaching. We got the X factor. We got Nico Himalaba. The only things that give me concern, number one, knock on the absolute wood. Okay, Nico got to stay healthy. Number one. Okay, really, a lot of people got to stay healthy. Nico and the offensive line got to stay healthy. But for me, that I can't quite get over. I'm hoping that we finally break that trend this year. Is Heupel every year he loses at least one game that he shouldn't lose. We just don't look like our same selves at all. At least once per season with Heupel so far. Whether it's Heupel, whether it's Tim Banks and his defense, whoever it is, there's usually some part of that team that doesn't quite gel for one game. I'm hoping that we break that trend this season. But yeah, I could definitely, like I said, I don't see them losing. I don't see us losing the game the whole regular season. Heck, I'm picking us all the way as well. I got number one.
Yeah. So yeah, that's very true. So, I kind of touched on my only concerns for Tennessee, right? Number one, like I touched on, is going to be at the left guard position. How do we do there? But I think that we're going to be fine because everywhere else we're very solid. And I do think that some of those young guys from the 23 class are going to, step up and take that next leap forward. And they're going to be some good depth pieces. They may even push to be a starter at the left guard position. We've also got some guys coming in 24 that I think further down the road in the, towards the end of the season, they might be ready to contribute as some depth pieces too. And then obviously, we've got two new coaches coming in with Coach Sims, okay, coaching the running backs. How's he going to do? We like the way that he's talking. His energy seems great. We do believe that he's going to do well, but you just don't know until you know. And then also we've got the new linebackers coach, Coach Inge. What's he going to bring to the table? I said that he kind of scared me because he was very even-keeled, but the players might resonate with that. So it could be, it could be great. It sounds like Coach Banks wanted to hire him to kind of be his second pair of eyes, and that could be a good thing. Maybe he might see things better than Coach BJ saw it last season. You never know, but I think that at the end of the day, with the talent that we have, based off of what we've done on a consistent basis since this staff has been up here, we've got all the pieces to be able to operate and run it at the highest level. So those are my concerns. And again, that's why I've got Tennessee at the number 1 spot. And you can call me a homer if you want, but I really don't care. All right, go Vols, baby.
You got to call me a homer too.
Yes, sir. So you already know, man. Thank y'all so much for tuning into the channel and for sticking all the way to the end. Please make sure to like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, share with your friends, family, and other volunteer fans. And we'll catch y'all on the next one. Thanks. Peace.